And in this case,
Hey, I'm ready.
No, that's fine.
I will call the meeting to order at 5:30 PM. And this is the 4th of June, 2025. Are there any agenda adjustments?
And we'd like to move item 8, which is the audit acceptance, to item 4.5. We have our auditor on the line with us, so in respect for her time, it doesn't require any action from you necessarily. It's already on the action agenda.
Okay,
Thank you.
are there any other agenda adjustments? Item 3, public comment.
All right, if you're good, Robin's the only person we have on Zoom. Okay, he's here for an item, she's here for an item.
So other than that, we're set?
Yep.
All right. And approve the minutes of the regular meeting of May 21st, 2025.
motion to approve the meeting minutes from May 21st.
A second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes of the May 21st meeting as printed. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion's approved. So,
Now the audit.
Article 4.5, the audit acceptance.
Perfect, we'll have, Penny, I'll give the floor first and then she can introduce Robin and. So this is, our annual audit, which the board accepts, you don't approve, but Penny will introduce it and then Robin will talk to you on it.
So the audit was in the package, it is considered a draft right now, just until you accept it, and then, then it'll get stamped and approved and whatever that Robin does. But this is Robin Barnett from, Dell Brannigan and Sargent. She was managing partner on this audit, is that correct?
Yeah, I was the partner responsible for this audit.
And I'll let you take it from there.
Okay, great.
They all
First-
have the audit in front of them.
Okay. First of all, I want to say thanks to Penny and her team for getting everything together for us. As I'm sure you will not be surprised to hear, 2024 was a year with lots of activity. So most of this audit, so the way the audits work, Penny prepares all the trial balances. The financial statements are the village of Morrisville's. Everything in this audit belongs to the village of Morrisville, and Morrisville is responsible for. We have a few reports where we express, the first one being the independent auditor's report, where we express an opinion on the financial statements based on the numbers that Penny and her team have put together. We again this year issued an unmodified opinion, which means that based on the audit procedures that we did, we believe that the financial statements are fairly presented and that there are no material misstatements within them. In 2024, the financial statements will look a little bit different because there was a single audit required. You're going to see some additional reporting in the back of the financial statements related to compliance and related to internal control on compliance. So in 2024, a single audit's required for federal expenditures that are over $750,000. So because the village of Morrisville had expenditures that were over $750,000, the single audit was required. So towards the back of the are those additional reports. You'll see there, I think the last 3 or 4 where it talks about internal control on compliance and internal control over financial reporting. Within those reports, we also did not have any material weaknesses on internal control for financial reporting or for internal control over compliance, which basically means when you have a single audit, you have to do some extra testing beyond just the financial statement numbers. Are they accurate? It requires you to test some of the compliance with those federal dollars. The major program that we tested as part of the single audit was the FEMA funding that you had. The village had expenditures related to Storm Elliott. There was flooding in 2023 and December 2023 flooding. During the audit, we didn't propose any audit adjustments. We did testing on material balances and did not find any material misstatements. Again, it was an extremely busy year for the village, so it's quite an accomplishment not to have any proposed audit adjustments at all. The electric fund in 2024 had an increase of net position of 95,000. You'll see that on page 8 of the financial statements. It shows
Page
41 of the packet.
Thank you.
So page 8 shows you how each of these funds, what their activity was for the year 2024. So in the electric fund, there was an increase of net position of 95,000. In 2023, there was a decrease in net position of 141,000. And the operating expenses, the production, transmission, distribution, those are all detailed out on pages 45 of the financial statements in the back, and the most significant expenditure being their purchase power. It was $5,224,063 in 2024, and in 2023 it was $4,864,362. So it's continuing to increase and be the most significant operating expense for the electric fund. Grant funds have helped you within the electric fund quite significantly. But these are kind of one-time amounts. So, and then on page 6 of the financial statements, you'll see the relicensing costs that are listed. They're at $1,580,626 to date. And these will be recovered over the life of the license when it's granted. In the sewer fund, going back to page 8, you'll see that the increase in net position for 2024, the wastewater fund, the third column, is $448,295. In 2023, it was $252,119. The water fund in the second column had an increase of net position of $223,932. And in 2023, it had a net position, a net loss, a decrease of 118,000. Again, in both of these funds, you had grant income that helped out quite a bit with the increase in the net position and in the wastewater fund, an increase of the net position was primarily related to the reserve allocation fees. those are the most significant parts of the financial statements, in my opinion. There's a lot in the footnotes which might or might not be of interest to you, but if we go through the entire audit, then we'll probably be here all night. So at this point, I'm going to open it up for questions for you, if you have any, rather than trying to focus on any other particular areas.
Excuse me, did you say that we would recover that, the money's the 1.5 million that we've spent on, relicensing? How does that
Well,
work?
okay, when I say recover, I mean it will be expended. It'll have to be recovered through rates, or it will have to be, yeah.
Basically, that 1.5 million will be like, it's kind of like depreciation, but I think it's actually called an amortization. So when the license is finally signed, we'll spread it off over like 30 years. It'll be considered an asset on the books.
Okay, so at some point, it's gonna become an asset and not a liability. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, right now it is an act, it's it's in construction work in progress, so it's sitting in a different spot.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so these are costs that you've actually incurred that you actually haven't recovered yet within your rates. Going forward, they'll be recoverable, hopefully.
The other thing I wanted to just mention too, when we talked about the water change in net position, it was 223,000. However, grant income was, 294, so without the grant income, we would have seen a loss. However, I think there were some expenses related to the flooding as well, but, we know that the water department is hurting a little bit, which is why we've implemented the rate last year and then again this year, the rate increase.
Yep.
First of all, nice work.
Thank you.
on this. When she's using the term single audit.
Yeah.
Is that different than years past?
Yes, so
Absolutely.
because we had expenditures over that 750.
Yeah.
And on page 83 of the packet. So it's and it doesn't have a page for the audit, but 83 of the packet that lists out all of those expenditures that we spent in 2024. We actually spent more than 750,000.
And that's a federal requirement, not when you exceed that, right? So it's not optional. You accept $30 more than that in a year, this is the cost of doing business. You now have to pay a little more for your audit, in order to make sure they have the right documentation available to them. They wanna see it, but they comply to have that single audit.
So what do we have before?
Just a regular audit.
So
A
regular
financial statement, yeah.
Okay,
So
that's a
what-
special, for the single
Single
audit
audit
is
is a
term
federal
for something.
something.
Yeah. So- Yeah, that's correct. So for instance, because your major program was, the disaster recovery grants from FEMA. Those are your major program, and we're required to do more testing on compliance. So, basically, are they considered allowable expenses for the FEMA program? That's one of the things that we have to specifically test. So, it's really getting down and looking at, the way the funds were expended in a greater detail. Looking at the reporting, was it reported properly to the grant providers, things like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And Robin, that increases to, is it 1 million in?
Yes,
25?
for 2025, that will be 1 million, although you'll see on report 1, for 24, you had 1,053,661, so you still would have had a
Yeah,
single audit. So maybe that will help you for 25, I'm not sure, but
Probably not.
might be too early.
More FEMA and Jersey Heights will probably have it at least one more year. I know you don't want to hear that, Penny, but.
no,
yeah.
So it looks like, as far as FEMA's concerned, we're probably not gonna get any money from FEMA?
We're still getting money,
But is that gonna be reflected in this, or is that gonna be reflected next year? If. Yes.
So, so on page 41 of the board packet, you'll see that there was grant income of $1,500,000. A large chunk of that has already been received.
but there's more we're talking to them about.
Well, yeah, as far as the water,
That's what
the
he's
flush of the water,
Cause it just says, there's a note here about with FEMA's on, future, there's no guarantee that planned FEMA funding mitigation projects will be completed. So whatever,
And it's just an unknown, basically we get asked to like do that economic, what's coming at us in a term, and I don't think anybody in the United States knows if FEMA funding is gonna be available, so
then how does that work if we don't get any more funding?
so we don't get any
Obviously,
more funding, we wouldn't need a single audit next year.
so,
No, I'm saying from FEMA. Right, if we don't get any more money for our projects for FEMA,
so the,
just.
That we have to figure out how to
And
solve it.
then.
Yeah, we'd have to figure out how to solve it or something.
so the remaining pending thing for the most part is the well area, the
Correct.
well,
Right.
the well two.
Yeah,
To be well for, if we choose to move forward with that, regardless of what FEMA's gonna do, then basically we'd have to take out a bond and the ratepayers would have to end up paying
And
for it.
whatever they pay on Katie's.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, and then,
That's the
yeah,
items.
yeah, and Katie's Falls has.
Somewhat, I don't know how much it is.
Oh, just the flooding at down at Katie's for from the July 24.
yeah, okay.
That's the majority of where we're left with FEMA.
So, and depending on the mitigation side, that could still be. I don't think it would be as much as a couple million, but it could be as much as a couple million, and it could be as little as a couple 100,000. Depending on what you do with them, so just trying to do a couple 100,000. Just, so. We're still negotiating.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
so if you're ready, so again, as I was saying to the chair, this is the one time here you don't approve, you accept, so that the motion would be to accept, that. Which is a little different from me.
Okay, is there any other questions from the board? I'll entertain a motion to accept the audit.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to accept the audit as presented. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robin.
Your team was great as always.
Great. Thanks so much for having me, and I will get Penny, I will get you those, have them and provide them to whoever needs them. Thanks a lot again for all your work. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank
Bye.
you. Good night.
Bye.
Now it looks like we're up to the special project authorization.
Check register.
Go back to five.
We did go. Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
In the minutes, not the check register.
Any questions on the check register?
I have one question about who somebody was, I'm just scrolling back and to find one is out.
What do you think it was?
It was one for a guy, that was $1,000, I didn't know if that
No,
was.
it was a big number, like 90,000 or something.
Oh, I think, you're maybe at page 10 and I've written a note. The reason it was on here specifically was because it was correcting the coding. So it was probably on a prior check register, but that's the. Cost of the excavator that we were borrowing money, so I had it flow through here so that I could get it put to the loan account and have it like flow through the record so it would show. As opposed to me doing a journal entry, I wanted it to flow this way, so I just had it keyed in that way. But that's the amount of the excavator loan.
I see we're already using it.
Yep,
Digging tomorrow, digging up the streets tomorrow.
Or the Bijou?
No, different. I'll tell you that when we get them there.
How about the piece of pear on page The 23,000, is that right?
Yeah,
You
that's for our new air compressor.
It's the air compressor?
Yeah.
That was in the budget.
Oh, I didn't know, I didn't know we were getting, I just wanted to make sure.
I didn't know either, Tom, but then I went back to the budget and it was in there, and I'm like, dang.
I know, that's why we're here. But, and did we ever have a trailer, or did we have to get a trailer for this year?
We bought a trailer in
And
it.
that's what it's combined, that's what I thought, yeah, gonna say. And have one without the other. Right.
Are there any further questions on the check register?
Motion to accept the check register.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to accept the check register. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Hi.
The ayes have it. Now, Jen Hubbard.
Yeah, we got Jen Hubbard with us for the next item.
Hi.
And I sent Jen the memo that I sent you all, so she had full information about at least my attempt to amalgamate what your collective view was at the last meeting. So I took a shot. So I think she saw that, and she's here to chat with you and answer any questions you have, and so. Hi.
Hi. Do you want me to start or?
I guess I could ask a question to start it, and that is, one of our concerns was about the building owner, have you talked to the building owner,
Yeah.
building owner agreed to
Yeah.
fund any of this?
Yeah, so I heard back from them yesterday, so it's a DeMar's property. So that's now Rick and Jamie Welcome, who are in charge of that, and they were saying that they would be in for a third. If that was something that, you know, and then they were like, you know, depending on what happened. If it was 2/3 on us and 1/3 on you, then we would work out some kind of arrangement. You know, just to go back to like my original proposal, like, yes, I own Lost Home Goods, which is located in that building, and obviously, like, I stand to benefit from the storefront looking good, but also, I mean, the reason that I applied was because I'm, you know, I have a business on that block, but now, you know, that I'm there, I'm trying, like, any property beautification that happens anywhere on Portland Street, as far as I'm concerned, is gonna help me and help my business, and there's, you know, there's a long way to come with some of these properties, so I found out about the fund. I looked at the language, like, it's pretty vaguely worded, so I wasn't sure, like, when it says. So I was looking at the Amy Wade wording, but the beautification of village streets and properties, meaning. Properties that are in the village or properties that belong to the village. That wasn't clear to me, and then I sort of interpreted the idea that there was a public call for applications to mean that there wasn't really any language about who could ask. Right, so I decided to ask, but I consider myself a proxy for DeMars, really, because they're too busy. I'm more motivated to do the application. I told them that I was gonna do it last year. When I found out about the fund, there was less than $5,000 in it. It was last year. And so I went to them and they were like, see what you can get, you know, so I didn't end up. Well, anyway, things got away from me last year. This spring, I went ahead and submitted it, and then I saw the language that it was like, oh, there's almost $30,000 more, you know, like, heck, let's just go for it. I don't really know what your mandate is as far as spending that money, and I don't know how you interpret that. But as far as I was concerned, it was a beautification of a village property. As far as I'm concerned, that is something that you are giving to ours. And I wasn't sure that you really wanted to get into negotiating what the agreement between the landlord and the tenant would be.
Correct.
And also, I don't think that you would really wanna get into like, us awarding this to the business that's Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not asking for any branding on it.
Right.
I don't want, that, as far as I'm concerned, that's gonna stay with Demar, that belongs to them. And I don't know if your concern also is, like, you give it to them. They sell the property, the new owner takes it down and sells it. Like whether you wanted to put something in there that was like, but.
Yeah.
That was kind of where I was at, where I was like, it never hurts to ask.
Who took the Kaplan one down? Did the Mars take it down or did Kaplan?
No, they hadn't even noticed. When I was like, hey, I'm gonna apply for an awning, they're like, you have an awning, I was like, no, and I have access to the basement, there's nothing.
I think it said Kaplan's on it though. didn't it?
Yeah,
It was one of those rolled
Yeah,
out
right.
stripey old timey ones,
Okay.
and so I was just thinking that like. Without it, you have that piece of whatever that black. Fiberglass black cladding is, it's not attractive, and just to cover that and give the facade a little dimension. I was just thinking, just something, a basic, more updated shed style. I think I put together kind of like a little illustration of what it would look like.
Is it only gonna extend on into the towns right away?
I doubt it, it's 2 feet. Yeah, so I could find that out,
Did you get word back?
I don't know where the towns right away
Yeah.
is.
right.
Different places.
I know that the sidewalk is double width right there. So it certainly wouldn't impede, and it's gonna be 8 feet in the air, but
Did you hear from Tyler?
I didn't.
He didn't respond yet.
he said he imagined that there would be a permit but he didn't wanna speak about that before, but he said it was
That's fine.
probably gonna be. He would be the one to approve it. He said, worst case scenario, it would have to go in front of the
Right.
PRB.
So
So,
there's gonna be no sign on this one. It's gonna be
No.
blank.
yes. Yeah, it's to benefit the architecture of the building. Is my feeling about it.
I was gonna bring up the DRB, it's, when there's a signage. Guidance and so forth with the DRB, it seems like if we were gonna. Do kind of like the verbiage you put in here, well, we set an amount and that we're willing to do for. Any business potentially, but should there be like, we maybe don't want them all different. So for them to kind of be, flowing through the town in a certain way, give a certain look, maybe the DRB. Would wanna do something about that, but. Of course, they're really just enforcing stuff that comes from the planning commission.
Or zoning, yeah.
Planning, so that doesn't be too long of a process, probably.
But I do think I don't know if you'll be ready to vote tonight or if you'll decide to wait and think about it more, but if you were ready, if you wanted to, you could. Condition on any necessary permits being attained by the town. So
Yeah.
you've done those things before, on something like that. So if totally up to you.
The other thing that I'd like to add is that the quote that I got last August.
Oh, yeah.
So I did write an email to Otter Creek Awnings to
Mhm.
check in and just say, how's it, with the price on this have changed? And like, honestly, I don't know how prepared I am to really be like swinging that piece of it. So it could be that we like figure out what it would take and then maybe we revisit. If we revisit it next year, that could be also a thing that happens, but.
Which always, a risk for next year is, we don't have any idea how much we're gonna get next year.
Right,
Right, so every
right.
year is a little different. This year, we did it one time, they used some money out of the principal and got the village voters to vote for that. That's why the amount went up.
Right,
Usually we
So,
have less,
so
so.
you give all of that away?
Not necessarily, we've had enough applications that if they fully funded everything, they would be gone this
Okay.
year. But they didn't pull that money out thinking they were necessarily going to get rid of it all this year. They just pulled it out so that some good could come of it rather than sitting in a bank.
Yeah,
I think when they put the article in front of the voters, I don't think the trustees thought that was a 1, 2, or 3 year. I don't think you didn't really have a time frame. It was just, well, put some of this money to work at some point and do good with it, right?
And plus, really had that many people apply for it.
Yeah.
They're just like little smaller projects that were here and there, nothing You know, sometimes nobody.
And just to say out loud, you didn't misread the criteria, like your private buildings can absolutely apply to the
Right.
criteria written. And the trustees have to figure out what's the highest and best use for the money, so you weren't wrong to apply, and now they've got to figure out, is this a good use for the funds or not, so.
Mhm.
So it is, and you're also right, it's pretty big.
Right.
You didn't misread
But,
that.
yeah.
So just for what it's worth. Anyone have any other questions?
Should I?
Do you have any
Should I
other questions
excuse
for them?
myself? I don't have
No,
any
no,
more
no.
questions.
I mean, obviously, we need to
You need to,
narrow the requirements down so people have a better idea what they're asking for.
Sure.
And when they come up with a project, it's gotta be a shovel ready, so whatever, you know,
That's right.
give, they know that's what they're getting and it's not gonna change.
Right.
So we need to make sure that's in there too.
The shovel ready is always in there, that isn't something that we publish both in the.
But it's like a cap, like a cap.
With the cap piece is a new piece of that's where you decide to go with this, you know, and so that's something you gotta figure out, but yeah.
Cause, and I said it last meeting, I'm all for it, whatever we can do, to make the village more attractive. I mean, it should, you know.
Yeah, and I thought of asking for that with the shovel ready in mind, just thinking, well, this would be this is a phone call, really.
Right.
You know, if it came down to getting approval for it, it's not something that's like complicated to do, and it wouldn't take very long. So, and I think the impact would be pretty noticeable, you know, even if it wasn't something that like screamed out, but people would. You know, once you look at the pictures side by side and you look back at what it looks like now, it's kind of like, oh, yeah.
So did you inquire whether or not you need a building permit to do this?
I did, yeah, so the new zoning, I mean, he's a weekend on the job, so he said he was 51 emails back and answering queries. So he said he would look into it, try to get an answer back as soon as he
Because
could.
you're altering the exterior of the.
I assume she needs some sort of permit or permits, but she's gotta get Tyler to tell her what those are.
And there is a precedent for having it there before, so I can't imagine that it's gonna be,
Well, if it's non-conforming and it's gone, you don't get it back.
right,
oh, I see, okay.
What's the deadline? For, is there a deadline? So
Yeah, what we publish is that all receipts have to be submitted to us by December 15th, so that depending on the fund and the pending server can cut a check by the last year of the year, so it can be in next year's audit. In the end of year financials, and yeah, that's the shovel ready part.
So in other words, there's plenty of time to get these answers.
If they're willing to put in a third, and then we came up with a number that we were willing to provide, but then there's still a gap there.
Right.
Would you still go forward with it?
I'm not 100% sure, it would depend on how much it was. This is not the most awesome time of year for me to be making that decision. So. It's a question of like, you know, and that's actually a question I could, you know, if you were to dangle it. And then do I have until the fall or winter to accept, you know, like how does that work? Because.
If we offer it, you basically have until December 15th to
Right.
complete the project.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter how we use that time at that point.
okay,
If there's conditions, you gotta meet the
that
conditions.
makes it much more attractive
Yeah,
to
you
me.
don't care when it happens, so
Yeah.
long as it's 100% complete.
I'm pretty
with
motivated
paperwork.
to have it happen, but you know, like it just.
Yeah.
I have a lot of other things that are tugging on my. Bank account too.
Understood. Yep, means you're part of society today.
Yeah.
small business.
Yeah. Great.
If you have no further questions of us,
Thanks.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
we're good.
We'll be in touch.
well, thanks so much for taking the time to listen and.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
I think the side door, the front door is locked. so-
Okay,
you go.
okay, I don't wanna set up any alarms. I
Okay.
just,
Yeah, I mean, people want to walk around just so she gets to the right place.
I just think, I think, just gotta make sure the door shuts too, it's just
Yeah.
always.
So I don't know if you wanna take any action or not, it's still up to you. Or you could table it if you're not ready, only with you.
Well, I don't think she's ready. So, or she just table it.
Does she understand that she's not gonna get the money till it's done?
I've been very
Yes,
clear with her about
Okay,
that,
good.
so it sounds like you might wanna table it till she hears back.
I don't, that's,
Seems like it makes sense, not,
Yeah.
I mean, we don't really know.
put down that, but 50%.
And we talked about capping it, if, you know,
Yeah, I tossed 2,000 out in the memo, doesn't mean that's the right number, just
Yeah.
trying to, again, I was trying to read your tea leaves from the last meeting, and I might have read them wrong. You may be, have more thirst and you may have less thirst, and when I tossed that out there, I didn't know that she'd been told by the property owner that he put a third in, so I didn't know that when I wrote you that memo, so just a full disclosure. So,
Well, I'd like to know that it's not in the town's right of way.
Yeah.
Okay, and if it's overhanging and it's in the right of way, you surely.
Yep.
Why would that matter?
You can't build in somebody else's right of way, you can't obstruct it.
The towns, like for over the sidewalk, you're saying?
I can't,
If, what he's trying to explain is if the town right away does include the double sidewalk,
Yeah,
you can't encroach that right away without permission.
yeah.
So she would have to grant permission.
you have to get the select board to approve.
Correct.
Right. So, on some places, like in front of Pete's on Main, I think maybe it's one width for the sidewalk.
Yeah.
It might not work there without.
Yeah.
Permission,
I know the easements and the rights of way are different all over.
Yeah,
I mean, I would not throw this,
yeah,
and to Bob's point, I mean, towns often grant that permission
yeah.
for things like awnings, so it's not, so long as it's not over the road. If it's doing this, but not all towns do, the select board may say no.
and then if they do it
Without saying
without approval, somebody can complain, they'll make us take it down.
Yeah, sure. So.
I mean, just by looking at the picture she brought, I mean, it's like that much sticks out.
Yes.
It's more of a fate of like a.
The favor facade,
Yeah.
so the right of way permission, any town permits, I still wanna see in writing from Demar's if they'll allow it on the building. She verbally said that they're in, but
Yeah,
I'd like to see that written down.
and no signage on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, sure. All right, well, I'll share that with her and then see what she comes back with. Make sense?
next item is the Jersey Heights woman.
You should actually move the table back.
Oh,
I think just do a question, sorry, between now and then someone else comes up with an application.
I would probably at that point, if we do not have another application, we had one in the works and they decided not to go for it this year, but if somebody came forward. I would certainly bring that to you and I would call her and say, by the way, there's another application. If you're gonna get your crap together, the clock of this is gonna wait for other things has just expired. You either gotta bring the answers in or you're probably gonna get bypassed. Right, so I would just be honest with her. Not to put you in the spot, but just to be fair to her, since she did apply, I would just tell her if somebody else has applied. If you're thinking you wanna go, this is the time.
And we could add a limit anytime. I mean, there's no, is there bylaws or something we have to put in or
No.
follow, we just say.
Because it's vague, it's really designed for you guys to use your discretion. So I only suggested the cap because it seemed like you were trying to find a way to deal with future applications and. Establishing some sort of cap for something like an awning seemed like a way to at least send a signal. They don't think you're getting a free awning, but we don't have the money to do it for everybody. So.
I'm not necessarily in favor of funding these things for private property.
Yep.
But if we do, there should be a cap.
Yeah.
I agree,
I
I
think-
agree, yeah.
Scott's cap of $2,000 is a good one.
I do too.
I do too, I mean, it shows we're interested in a project that's kind
But
of a
you're gonna have
long-term
to skin it.
investment and so forth, and it's.
Okay.
By the way, I looked at that too, is I know the tree. There's a tree thing that's had a cap of $75, so.
Right.
Where you could, I don't even know if you can get trees anymore for that amount of money, but,
Maybe you can buy plants.
yeah.
There's a hanging plant,
I mean,
like,
look, it's all.
Half-inch caliper tree.
But, so we may to look at that policy too, but,
Yes.
the other thing, and I don't know if there's any way we can make a stipulation, but. She made the point, I think it was her, that if. DeMar sells the property and the next property owner doesn't want it on there, like, I don't know if you. if there's anything you can do, like say.
Once it's attached, it's attached.
That's right.
I mean, these other projects that we funded, and what, like.
Well, in
what
general,
happens to
like,
that?
you know, those flower, like,
Yeah.
what happens to them if somebody, the next, like, the town comes in and says, I want to get rid of them, like, I don't know if
They
there's
get damaged or something.
Yeah.
Maybe
anything you can do in a policy
we
that,
could put best intents into an agreement or something, but honestly, who's gonna enforce it? Like, if we spend the amount of money to try to enforce getting a check back from them at that point, so. I think you make these things eyes wide open,
Yeah.
you know, something bad could happen in the village and half the holiday lights should get broken in 1 year, right? It's just,
Yeah.
it's the risk of the money, right? I think, I don't know.
It's good intentions, you know.
Okay. So I think you should go, motion to table.
Motion to table this proposal.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? I'll entertain a vote. All those in favor of tabling this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Now. Jersey Heights loan authorization.
So it's in your, I sent it as a separate file, not in the packet, because it didn't work. So, I don't know, it just seems every time we turn around with Jersey Heights is another thing we need your approval for. So we actually need your authorization for the loan.
application, just to sign the application.
So you approved a whole bunch of stuff about Jersey Heights. This is just for me to be able to sign, you have to approve for the chair to be able to sign the loan application for Jersey Heights.
That tag along project that somebody proposed for the town, that's not included.
The application asks if we were applying for the Whisper grant, and we checked the mailbox.
Okay, very good.
Because in part, the town has not expressed any interest, so I didn't have to bring it to you. Because
Again, you know, we might have got a lower interest rate, but we're still gonna be in debt for that amount of money.
I hear you.
And we can't pay it off early because we're gonna pay off their shit.
And the good news is, we didn't even have to go on the record about that, because the town didn't ask.
Good.
So,
Okay.
so if the community's unhappy, they're not unhappy with you.
Okay, I will entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to allow management to apply for a loan from the bond bank for Jersey Heights Pump Station Rehabilitation Project.
I'll second it.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it.
Can you just bring that, or I don't even have that.
Yeah, I didn't.
Okay.
Tonight, we'll look at it.
What's the bond bank?
Can you describe the bond bank?
Nope,
So the bond.
just a bank
It's
that,
a state financial institution.
Okay.
That basically, on behalf of municipalities and other governmental entities, issues, state treasury bonds. So that you can get a much lower interest rate, in general. So that's what that is. Very good.
thank you, I,
Yeah, yeah. And I see Paul's joined us. I'll bet you we can probably do the management report in less than 5 minutes if you're so inclined.
Works for me.
Hi, Paul, we'll be with you in about 5 minutes.
Okay,
Welcome.
I'll just take my,
I know you were verbal, but.
Any questions?
You guys scroll far enough to get to it.
Well, he didn't have anything, he was on vacation.
Carl, control end,
His was like control and.
control end, 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 end.
Units are running well at all the plants, little tricky running Green River, trying to maintain almost no, level in the pond level while the loons are nesting, and then you get an alert that we've got a peak, so. Other than that, keeping things on track there. Katie's Falls does have an issue with the drive motor or some debris caught in it. And we gotta get divers in there to take a look, see if there's a stump or something.
Good drive motor for,
With the gate, the head gate.
okay.
Yeah. On the water side, we're still battling with FEMA, the flood recovery items. Scott mentioned briefly the leak down here, at the old Trick Place, and we're gonna get our new toy down there and hopefully do no harm. With that resolved, we got our state permit to operate our water system issued, which was great. We did a lot of work with the sanitary survey reviews, source protection plan update. Our class 3 operator recertifications, our revised total color form sampling plan. Consumer confidence report will go going out in the next mailing. The only downside is they want us to, requiring us to digitize our O&M manual, which is like that thing, so we gotta get work on that before summer's over. And the Jersey Heights pump station, we've got one motor that's given us some grief, but we've got Laramie's on it right now, we'll get that back up and running. And then we've got the operational management and emergency response plan to update before too.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Rusty.
You guys have any questions on mine? I'll just run through it real quickly. We had a broken pole excavator versus pole in Johnson. We set the new generator for the water department down at our well. Did want you to know that we actually, they're putting the excavator to use. We've got, did a couple off-road acres in Elmore with it. The boys actually been familiarizing themselves with it, clean up some of the backyard here, smoothing it out. There's some danger trees on our system. More preparation for the 3319 project up there on Fraser Road. Other than that, if you guys have any other questions for you, I'll be happy to answer them.
Nope. Okay.
It's second round interviews for the customer service supervisor position. Met with the AMI consultant to go over the AMI meter change out. And we're working with Comcast to go through a new phone system. This phone system is well over 20 years old since I think we moved from this building. And we had some issues with the backup battery, so it led us to, well, Rachel, the phone lady, is retiring, so she directed us to Comcast, so we're gonna be looking at.
Voice over internet protocol.
Voice over IP.
So
He said.
that's gonna be a whole new process for us, and But-
I've lived with it before, it's easy.
it seems like it will be, but it's just.
Penny's very.
They're gonna be better to deal with than when you have a problem with your TV.
I don't know.
They claim, and Rusty probably knows more about this than me, that, you know, the way that the internet process works for voice over internet is different than for cable, for your TV. If a pole comes, if a tree goes over, it takes the wire out, everything's out no matter what, but short of that, there's differences that I can't explain.
Yeah, one travels on the outside, one travels on the inside, so you don't lose your internet. We can lose our internet, you're not gonna lose your phone.
Well, my question more than that, right?
If there's a problem, I know for a fact that the business and phone customers are priority. Phone's priority for that period, because it's a law that you have to have, the phone service has to be restored.
Yeah.
So if, from a text aspect, if they see phone, that's a high priority. Or versus TV or other
Cause
internet.
it's regulated.
What can
It
you
is
get,
regulated.
what can you get to someone?
Can you get to someone on the business side? Yes.
Okay.
It's on the business side.
So,
It's strictly on the business side, and so you won't ever see a regular tech come in here. You'll actually see on the vans, it will actually say business, I think it says business Comcast business on it. And those are the, specifically for the large business with the phone systems. They act pretty quickly.
Thank you.
I had a Comcast phone system in my office in Boston, and essentially everything was on Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
That's
kind of-
essentially, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Your whole entire phone system is just basically voice over your IP. It's completely.
Like they run all the wires.
So we're gonna
all
have-
the phones with
yeah.
all the buttons on
So we're gonna
Yes.
have to improve internet capability too,
Also,
as part of it.
as part of it.
And you might ask if it's possible to have a backup analog line, so that if it did go down, you have a secondary, some way of making a phone call.
We're going to, in a sense, because we're regulated, and I know there has to be a copper line for the fax machine.
Yeah,
So that line will remain in the building for the fax machine.
and if it's a number that you could call, emergency.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how it could be done, but
Yeah, we also can just automatically, since the calls don't all come here. They
Yeah.
go through a system, so you can also call forward them to a different place, or you can call forward them to our cell phones.
That's, you got just some backup,
Yeah,
because
just saying, yeah.
it's voice over IP,
Yeah.
if you have one
You're
path coming in here and something
Exactly.
happens, somebody digs or hits the
No,
pole or whatever, you're
exactly
done.
right.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
and we can bypass the phones. If you guys remember that night that Penny and I left, the
Yeah.
meeting, we were messing around with phones. I ended up going home that night with the company phone and all the calls were going to my cell phone. So
How many did you get realistically?
I didn't get any, thankfully, but I'm just saying.
All of them, yeah.
Just so you guys know, it can be late, and in a case
As long
like
as you
that,
got something for backup, that's all.
the customers would have been taken care of.
And the only other thing I wanted to add that's not on here, we received email Friday night from the lawyer about, the rate case and the commission is.
Commission here, so.
Commission hearing officer is asking us some additional clarifying questions, so. The DPS, passed it through this time, but now it's on the commission, so
We're working on it.
we're working on it, yeah.
On my side, I noted, and I see Kevin's gone out again, but, so the pump station goes out to bid tomorrow. Bids are due July 2nd. Our environmental stuff from the Fonzie meeting, that 30-day period is running. We got permission from the state to do the equivalent of the Fonzie for the aquifer permits. So in both cases, we're both in a 30-day public comment period. Presuming they don't get substantive comments that make them change their mind, they'll issue both permits. And we'll be ready to go with both projects, so. And I noted we're starting to work on a capital improvements plan for this place, and I'm up in 80 to $100 million worth of capital investments over the next 20 years that we'll have to talk about, so over the summer, we'll start chatting about some of that. 20-year period, it's not as much per year as it seems, so it's not surprising it's that much, but it's a lot.
Scott, you were getting interviewed by somebody the other day, and I meant to watch it, I don't know if it was on TV, but I.
It was,
Too late.
It was about the Green River Reservoir in a recent court decision. Basically, thankfully they used the clip I hoped, because they interviewed for 15 minutes and they picked 3 seconds, and so they picked the piece where he asked me, so what's the environmental consequence? And essentially what I said was, well, on the one hand, the permit says we're not allowed to use any water for any purpose because there'd be environmental calamity if you took any water out of the reservoir. But on the other hand, we're mandated and required to release all kinds of water so people can go on a joyride in their kayak. So no, there's no environmental consequence. It's not based on that. So I said it different than I just did, but that's what he is.
I got a question, it's kind of off this subject, but we talked about rescinding that agreement we made with the zoning planning board.
Executive session.
What's that?
Executive session.
That's executive session, yeah.
Yeah. That's one of the things on the list.
Hmm?
So, and I know next time we'll probably have another executive session. We also will have to renew authorization for our line of credit. So we have to do that once a year. So next meeting we'll have that ready for you as well, just as a heads up. Penny won't be here, but I'll stumble my way through explaining it, so. Unless there's questions, I think what we're looking for to get it right, is 3. When we make a motion for executive session, there are 3 different sections. There's 313A1B, which is labor agreements. There is 313A1F, which is confidential attorney-client communications. And 313A3, which is public officers.
Make a motion to go into executive session.
I'll second it.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of going into executive session at 6:24 PM, say aye.
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 Get us on pause.
All right, and I will entertain a motion to amend the contract duration for the general manager.
So moved.
Does that work?
Did I not?
Just amend the contract and authorize the chair to sign.
And authorize the chair to sign. Amend the contract and authorize the chair to sign.
I'll second.
Motion been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Adjourned.
done.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. At 7:10 PM.
Thank you very much. Let me do this.
Thank you all.